He wanted to prevent what's his name from doing it.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, economist, and venture capitalist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the Trump indictments is Rabbi David Seidemann, a brilliant scholar with a background in religion, philosophy, and law. And now, Mr. Davis and Rabbi Seidemann.
I'm delighted to be back with you at 6:30 Wednesday, and we have a regular date, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate your being with me every Wednesday, those that are with me, and those that listen to it on various different outlets during the course of the week, because while the program is called Morty Davis, the Voice of Wisdom, I have to tell you, I get more wisdom from my audience than I could ever present on my own. So I appreciate you all, and I thank you for your comments, for your positive support, and for your criticism, even when it upsets me, because I get to think about it, and in many cases I've modified my views, I've changed my mind, you've converted me. So it's a great dialogue, and I appreciate you all. So it's great to be back with you, and it's especially be great to have Rabbi lawyer David Seidemann, a brilliant guy in every aspect of his life, in every respect, both as a rabbi and a religious leader, and as a legal scholar. So we should have an exciting debate, or because he may agree with me, so maybe it won't be a debate. He may agree with me on one or two things, but anyway, he has great insights, and I appreciate his joining the podcast whenever he has a chance to. I invite him all the time, and he's busy. His time is invaluable. He could be making a fortune while he's spending his time here, and he chooses to offer his services to benefit my listeners. So thank you, David.
My pleasure.
And even though we often disagree, but we can agree to disagree, and I still admire your wisdom, and I love you as a human being.
You'll get over it. That's what you always say to me when I tell you I love you.
So
it doesn't hurt that we've been neighbors for 20 years. That's nice
well, look, I got to be nice to you, because you never know. Yeah, you never know when I got to go over and ask you for a cup of sugar or something.
Something like that.
So, yeah.
So here we are. Now, what's interesting is that I've been at your house for an hour already. We've already fought like dogs over this issue, and now we're going to go on air.
We should have recorded that.
I know, that might have been better than this.
We'd have a great
now
program.
I'm tired already. You wore me out. But listen, what we're going to talk about today is what the entire country's talking about. You know, you can't turn on any of the news channels without this being the lead story. So take it away, my dear friend.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'll miss. Even though Donald Trump used to be one of my best friends, I loved him. He always spoke so highly of me. I once introduced him. I spoke very highly of him. I was asked to introduce him in Philadelphia. What was the name of the board of trustees I was on?
Freedom Foundation.
The Freedom Foundation, an organization that was founded by General Dwight, President Dwight D. Eisenhower, and it was established to memorialize the Battle of what?
Valley Forge.
The Battle of Valley Forge. So they appointed me to introduce Donald Trump who was going to be the guest of honor that year. And they asked me, they didn't appoint me, they asked me if I would be willing to introduce him, and I said it would be my pleasure. And I liked him a lot, and I have to tell you, he was a different human being than he is today. But when I spoke about him, I said he's a genius. He builds the most amazing structures throughout the world. He solved a problem in Central Park with an ice skating rink that 4 or 5 builders had come in and never could deal with the problem, solve the problem. He came in a matter of months. He solved it. I couldn't say enough nice things about him because he deserved it, I thought. And so at the end, he actually came up and kissed me, and he was there with, at the time he wasn't married, so he was there with a beautiful supermodel, and she came up and thanked me so much, and he appreciated that I had scored points for him with his supermodel. So ever since that time, whenever he introduced me to other people, he said, Morty Davis, the most brilliant guy on Wall Street, the most successful, the most incisive. He endorsed my book, From Hard Knocks to Hot Stocks, saying it's the greatest book ever written on the subject of Wall Street, of investing. So, but at that time, I have to tell you, he was diametrically different than what he is today. He was for pro-choice. He was he backed Bill Clinton, and he was a supporter of Hillary Clinton. He was just a different person than he is today. And maybe in business he was the same, because he did, seemingly, we learned, mess up a lot of people that gave him money or lent him money or built properties for him or lawyers that he refused to pay. I never knew that about him. So I thought he was a genius. And whenever I went to his office, he showed me pictures of him on the cover of every magazine. Some of them were real, and some of them he put on, I think, on his own. But they were still on the cover of every major magazine. But he was an accomplished guy. And when he reached TV and had the program Apprentice, he was amazingly successful. And he always bragged to me. He said every other guy tried it. All the billionaires tried it, and none of them could succeed. And he was successful on The Apprentice. So tonight, as we talk about should he be indicted, or is it fair that he's indicted, or what's the status of his various indictments, were they appropriate or not? So I feel that based on the facts that have come out so far, and we have a great system because he's innocent till proven guilty, and a jury of his peers will decide whether he is guilty of a crime or not. So our system works. In many respects, he abuses the system. He doesn't deliver the various documents that he's asked for, that he's obligated to return. So, but all of that's going to be decided by our system that helps this country be the greatest country in the world. A system of law and order where everybody, no matter how big or how small, is subject to the same rules and the same laws. So with that, you have my position. I think from the facts that I've learned, the process has been proper. The facts that have so far surfaced, and I haven't seen them, I learned of them, as you all did, probably, through reading the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, or watching the various talk shows. So that's not the final, what's the word, the final resolution. The final resolution is when he gets to present his side of the case, and then a jury or a judge who's impartial helps make that decision. So now I want to hear from our brilliant scholar, a fellow who is a lawyer and should know much more than me, and surely does. Surely does. You're far too modest.
So I'll tell you this. I have good reason to be modest.
No,
I've
no.
accomplished nothing.
No,
I'm joking.
you're following your teachings in the religion.
I will say this.
It's important to be humble.
Thank you.
And you're very humble.
Thank you. I will say this.
I have a lot of humility because I should have a lot of humility. I should be very humble. But you shouldn't be so humble because you're an accomplished
Thank you, sir.
guy.
I will say this. We were discussing this before we even came on the air. We live in a time now where facts don't matter. People are so entrenched in either their support for Trump or their or their disdain and hate for him. The facts don't matter.
I think the facts matter.
No.
You're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts.
No.
He's been brought to justice, supposedly, based on the facts.
No. What I'm saying is...
Tell me which facts which facts are not...
Morty.
Yes.
You're falling into the...
David.
By not letting me finish, you're proving my point. My point is that even if all the facts were against him, it doesn't matter to his supporters. And even if all the facts were for him, it doesn't matter to his detractors. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why.
Because he's got a cult.
No.
Yes. Okay.
Because in mid-March, Hunter Biden admits that the laptop was his. The next day, indictment number 1. In June, the day after the FBI document, the 1023, I think it's called, emerges about Burisma and Joe Biden's involvement in it, the next day, Trump is indicted. Just a few weeks ago, July 31st, the day after Devin Archer testifies that Joe Biden met with Hunter Biden's associates, the next day, Jack Smith comes down with indictment number 3. So even if everything in those indictments were true...
I think that's your construction. I didn't see it that way. Did it happen that way the next day?
That's exactly how it happened. Within 24 hours. And that is why...
And he's been found guilty of certain things and not of other things.
There's no finding yet. There's no finding.
There's
no finding.
There was a finding, but there was a finding. They had an agreement, and then the judge said it was not appropriate.
Talking about Hunter, I thought you meant Trump. No. Right, no, so this is my point. I'm trying to explain to you why facts don't matter. Because all the Trump supporters look at the timing of this and say, it's political. And all of Biden supporters say, it's not political, it's coincidental that the day after. But here's my point. Here, let's look at the 3 existing indictments, and we know there's a 4th one coming along the way. I'm telling you as a lawyer who practiced criminal law for a number of years. Indictment number 1 about the hush money, I'm giving you my prediction, and let's watch this a year from now. There is a 10% chance that the case will ever go to trial. My prediction is it gets tossed before it even goes to trial. If it does go to trial, there's no way any appellate division is going to sustain the conviction on the hush money because people pay money
Can I ask you something?
In a minute for a lot of go ahead, ask me now.
No, he was entitled to pay the money.
No, and that's not.
But why did Cohn go to jail for paying that money? Because it was attributed. No, it was attributed to the fact. Not that he paid the money, but it was paid to influence the election. That's why Cohen went to prison.
That is not what Trump is being charged with. He's charged with false.
But that's what he should be. That's what
he was
for the hush money. That's what he's going to be charged with. That's what he's going to be charged with.
The indictment is already done, and unless there's some superseding indictment, that's done. Indictment number 2, the classified
Is that over with, the hush money? It's not over with.
No, it's going to go to trial next March, they say.
Also.
But it's, I'm telling you, it'll be tossed either pre-trial, maybe not because it's New York. No appellate division is going to.
Then everybody's not treated the same under the law.
Okay.
Because Cohen had no motive to give her the hush money. He wasn't in trouble. He got repaid by Trump.
But people pay money to settle cases all the time because to answer your question, because it's not hush money. If you accuse me of getting into a car accident with you, right? But I didn't do it. But I can get rid of you for $50,000. I'll pay you. The $50,000 I'm paying you doesn't mean that I'm guilty. People make business decisions every day. It'll be tossed. I'll tell you what.
No, but you're not. The crucial factor in this is that it was supposedly, and that's why Cohen went to jail. It was paid to silence her so that it wouldn't influence his presidential campaign.
The charge was that
it was an undisclosed campaign contribution.
The campaign contribution?
Yeah.
No. Michael Cohen paid this woman, correct?
Right.
So
why?
Michael, what?
Yeah. Why did he pay? Why did he pay her?
Let's say it's to keep her quiet. People do that all the time.
That there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. So that means you can't.
It's in relation to when it was paid and why it was paid.
You have to prove the motive.
They did.
No, they didn't.
In the case of Cohen, they did.
No, you have to prove
that Trump had that motive. Why did Cohen go to
Because Cohen's a loyal soldier.
No, but why did he?
Ask him.
If he's allowed to pay it, why did he go to jail? You say he was allowed to pay the hush money. Why would he go to jail?
No, I'm talking about.
Why would Cohen go to jail?
I don't know. I'm not here to talk about Michael Cohen.
I'm just saying it's the same.
I'm telling you that once there's
the same facts apply to Trump as applied to Cohen.
They don't.
Okay, let's get beyond that.
Once there's another motive, once there's another possible motive, that charge is gone. Let me go to indictment number 2, the classified documents. There, I admit, Donald Trump has a problem. Donald Trump has exposure there. He has exposure there because on one hand, he, as president, he has the right to declassify a document at almost any time. However, there's some tape recordings.
Only while he's in office.
Okay, but when did he move them to that place?
Has he left as president?
Before the inauguration of the new president, after the inauguration, when did he give the orders to have them transferred down there, even if they ended up being transferred after? That's not the point. The point is there are some tapes that are pretty damning. The third indictment, the election interference, that is the most frightening one. Not to Donald Trump, but to the rest of America. Because, first of all, again, I said this before we came on the air, there is zero chance that the United States Supreme Court or even an appellate division is going to uphold a conviction in a case like this. Political speech, the First Amendment, freedom of speech, there's all kinds of speech. There's hate speech, there's advertising speech, there's opinion speech. The most protected speech of all the speech out there is political speech. In order to hold somebody accountable for something said in the furtherance of their political aspirations, 1,000,000 to 1 long shot. He could have said, find me more votes. I believe it was rigged. This guy's a phony. This guy's a fraud. The whole election was rigged. That's protected speech. You can indict. You cannot convict a person for pursuing his political agenda, no matter what he says. It could be the most outlandish, with no foundation. The case, if you want to look it up, it's a 2010 case, Citizens United versus Federal Elections Commission, and it just re-emphasized the immense protection given to political speech. The only way Trump goes down on this is if there's testimony or recordings or evidence, some sort of other documentary evidence or testimonial evidence that he got together with people beforehand, knowing, again, as long as he believed it, even if he was wrong, it's protected, knowing that what he was about to do is wrong, and he went ahead and did it anyways.
He's not indicted for the speech.
That's what conspiracy is.
He's indicted for the conduct.
What's the conduct?
Tell
me the conduct.
First, obviously, one was to incite the riot. Secondly, it was telling Pence not to do his constitutional duty.
I'm glad you brought that up.
And he even was saying.
Did Pence do his duty?
Yes.
Charge is gone. Charge is gone. The charge is gone. If Pence ended up doing his duty, there's no conviction.
Yeah, but
no conviction.
But all of the damage to all the people there was because of his. That led to all of it.
Now let's break it down. Let's talk about the riot itself with the incite to riot, and let's talk about telling Pence not to do his duty. If Donald Trump tells Pence, "Don't do your duty," and Pence
violate the Constitution.
Violate the Constitution. And Pence goes ahead and does his duty, then there's no obstruction because Pence went ahead and did it. If he conspired with Pence to do it, and Pence said, "Screw you, I'm not doing it," there's no conspiracy. Because conspiracy means, by definition, an agreement between two people to go ahead and do something illegal. Pence didn't agree with him, so where's the conspiracy? Where's the conspiracy?
He exploded the riot. Let me tell you.
Talk about something else.
No,
Incite to riot.
They're not unrelated. And not only that, I watch a lot of television, right? For the days before January 6th, I watched a number of programs. I knew there was going to be a riot on January 6th because I heard Steve Bannon say it, the president said it, and they didn't make it up. So, and when they asked him to stop it, he wouldn't stop it, and people got killed. That all emanated from policemen.
Yeah. People got killed? Somebody got killed? I didn't remember that fact. Okay.
What do you mean?
It's not conspiracy unless somebody agreed with him, and there's no obstruction if Pence went ahead and did it. That's the law. It might not be right, but that's the law. Morty.
That's why it's going to court, and you and I aren't going to decide it here.
That's correct, but that's what I'm telling you. Since we are a nation of laws, there's no way, in my humble opinion, I'm not Alan Dershowitz, I'm not Jonathan Turley, but I've listened to Dershowitz on this, and I've listened to Turley on this, and they both agree with me.
Really?
100%.
I didn't watch Turley.
Jonathan Turley is a genius. He says it's protected free speech.
So he says, is Turley saying all the indictments are...
No, he said the classified documents he might have a problem on.
But under you...
He says the other ones are getting tossed.
I'd like to hear that.
I saw it myself. I've seen the number of interviews. Turley said...
I'm going to look it up.
I
can't believe Turley said that.
And I like Turley a lot. I mean, he's brilliant. Yeah. Conspiracy means an agreement between two people, two or more people. If Pence didn't listen to him, there's no conspiracy. Now, you might find a July 6th rioter who got together with Trump beforehand and said, "Listen, we're going to do this," then you're right. But that person hasn't emerged yet. That person has not emerged yet. But I think there's a more fundamental thing, and that is that, and this is what we were talking about before, we're living in this age where the facts don't matter. The Democrats believe he's a rat, and the Republicans believe, and he should be in jail, and the Republicans believe that he's being hounded. And we were talking about this before. Is there anything he could do that would make one of his supporters peel off? And the answer is probably not. Short of murder.
No, every time they bring more indictments, he says, they're not going after me, they're going after you. I'm the one that they're picking on as they were attacking, and to me, his followers are a cult because they're not interested in any of the facts.
Right. And there, I agree with you there. I agree that they won't even look at the facts. They won't even consider that maybe Joe Biden is doing something positive for the country. Similarly, the Democrat, a staunch Democrat, will never even look.
Well, even you said, you felt that way.
That what?
In our earlier conversation, you said Biden is inept, out of his mind, or
right.
whatever.
I admitted that I am so turned off by the left agenda that I don't give Biden a fair shake. I admit that.
He's doing a good job.
Okay.
The economy is doing great.
I don't think he's doing the job. I think there's people pulling the strings, and that's okay. Maybe that's the way it's always been. Maybe that's the best form of government, when other people pull the strings and we don't leave it in the hands of one person. But I don't think he brings a lot of honor and stature to
Look, I don't love Biden because of his position on Israel.
Yeah.
He shouldn't, not only in Israel, we interfere with everybody in the world. We should do what the Madison said, we should take care of North and South America, and not look to solve all the problems of the whole world.
Right.
It's so outrageous. So he's critical of Bibi Netanyahu in Israel, and that's an internal matter, and it's not his place to intrude.
Would he do it if it was England? Would he do it would Biden comment on internal matters in England or in Ireland? I doubt it seriously. When it begs the question, why when it comes to Israel?
Well, his argument would be that we're giving a lot of money to Israel, and we have a right to, therefore, to say what we think or to introduce.
It's not smart politics. It's not smart politics.
You and I are biased. That doesn't mean it.
That's definitely true.
That we're pro-Israel, and But look, they push for doing for the Palestinians. They don't push the Palestinians to say, make a map that shows Israel as a country.
Yeah.
They don't. Nobody. The college kids, the Jewish college kids, don't say, don't recognize. If indeed it was a country, where's the currency that they had,
right.
Or where's the constitution? There was never a Palestinian country.
Right.
So they put all the onus on Israel, and not only that. The saddest comment on this that is. Israel has taken in every Jew that was thrown out of there's hardly any Jews left in any of these Arab Muslim countries. They were all evicted. They could never have a synagogue. Maybe Morocco or maybe one other country. Who's that tennis player? She was a top tennis player just now. Anyways, it's a more liberal Arab country. But other than that, they're almost all gone, the Jews, and Israel's absorbed them. There's not one Arab country that's absorbed the Palestinians.
Right, where's Jordan to say, come on home, Palestinians?
Not Saudi Arabia,
where's Egypt, Saudi Arabia, right?
Not Iraq, not Iran, because one of the things that's true is probably the Palestinians are probably, of all the masses in all those other countries, the Palestinians are probably the most educated. And they don't need educated Arabs to come in and make trouble in their nation, so they don't want them there. There's people that were told that when the war broke out in 1948, right after the UN and Truman voted to make Israel a Jewish state, they were advised to leave. The Palestinians were advised to leave, and we're going to get rid of those Jews and those so-called Israelis, and then you'll be able to come back and get your lands back, and even get the lands that the Israeli zone. So a lot of them went to different countries, Syria. But till this day, the ones that left for Lebanon are still in a camp. Mm-hmm. They won't absorb them. They won't. Right. They won't. You know, they were their own people. They should love them and take them in and let them become citizens, or at least let them have a good life. They're still in the camp.
And even Gaza and the West Bank, there's all these refugee camps, and that's not controlled by Israel. They're not being integrated into their own society.
And Israel gets almost no credit that I ever noticed for turning over of the vast part of the land, which was Sinai, to Egypt, right. Which it happens. Egypt has lived up to it, but it was a good move for Israel. Yeah. But it was a major concession, and they gave up. There was an argument at the border of Lebanon, and Israel finally decided it's not worth fighting over it. They gave it to Lebanon. That didn't.
In Gaza, they gave it to the Palestinians, which was then taken over by Hamas. So that didn't work out
well. It was worse than that. They had to get Israeli IDF troops in there to move the Israelis who lived there, who right. built businesses there.
Right. Yeah, meat, I believe.
Agricultural businesses. South, yeah. And they gave it up, and not only didn't they get a benefit, they created.
It's a launching pad.
So yeah. They want Israel to do the same thing with the Palestinians when there's no evidence of good faith. You know, if they behaved like Egypt, then Israel could live with that. But they don't recognize a state of Israel. And
across the globe, how many countries are involved in territorial disputes? It's not just Israel and the Arabs. There's territorial disputes almost in every corner of the globe, and no one says boo. But when it comes to Israel, I read an article today that Australia, I believe it is now changing their approach, and they're now going to they're going back to the phrase the occupied Palestinian territories. That was in today's
news. Apparently in the old days it was all right to keep occupied territories, because the most valuable part of the United States is what we won in the Mexican-American War. You know what we won? The most valuable part of the United States.
What's that?
California.
Sutton Park?
Sutton Park. Yeah. Lawrence. Yeah. California, Texas, New Mexico, and what was the fourth one? California, Texas, New Mexico, one other state.
All right, so that's a whole nother discussion.
But I'm saying,
international law, offensive wars, defensive wars.
Mexico could say, we want it back.
Right.
You want it in a war.
Right. Well, so that's international law, which I got a B+ in, I believe, in international law.
Yeah.
But that's the difference between an offensive war and a defensive war. An offensive war, so then occupied territory is supposed to be returned. In a defensive war, finders keepers.
Who defines that? Like with Taiwan, we're ready to send American troops there, because I heard somebody today say, well, yeah, we have to do it. We have to do it because Taiwan provides 2/3 of the chips of the, what are they called, semiconductors, of the most advanced semiconductors. So if we couldn't get them from Taiwan, if, God forbid, China took it over and stopped it.
Then we're in trouble.
Usually China is happy to sell us most everything because they want the profits. But that's not their fault. That's our fault that we didn't prepare. Right. Just like when we complain to the whole world, you're sending in drugs. We should stop the demand. If there wasn't any demand, they couldn't make the profits. But we're always blaming everybody else. You take care of our problem. That's outrageous. And we have no business, because Taiwan was part of China. Wasn't so long ago.
Right.
And Chiang Kai-shek, who during the Second World War was, for a while, especially Madam Chiang Kai-shek, was considered a great hero. After the war, they found out he was corrupt. So he took off and cut that part of the China and made it an independent country. But why is that
So what is it about Israel? Why is that front and center on America's kaleidoscope of territorial disputes.
Well,
that
you
we
could
have
ask
to
you
resolve.
could ask the same question about. You'd think that Israel is the major country of the world, because at the UN there's no other country that's discussed as much,
Correct.
or argued about as much, or censured as much. You'd think that before the International Criminal Court, Israel is brought up. They're not even a member, that they shouldn't be subject. They never agreed to be
ruling,
subjected to that
But
court.
didn't Biden just rejoin all of the groups that Trump pulled out of UNESCO?
Probably could.
Yeah.
Probably right.
Yeah.
But also, the most amazing thing is, what's the civil rights group in the UN?
Rights Commission.
Human treatment or something. So who was appointed head of that? Iran?
North Korea, China,
because
rotating
it
basis,
rotates.
yeah.
I think currently Israel happens to be. But Israel's one country, and there's
So
at
there's an
least
obsession.
14.
Right, there's an
Yes,
obsession.
so
with
when you
Israel.
ask why is it, why Judaism is every single day, there's not a day that passes that anti-Semitism isn't visible in this world. Just today I was reading Tucker Carlson as abusing Zelensky. He says he's a Jewish rat, because what he's doing, he's wiping out the Christians, because he's apparently very pro, like Trump is very pro. Who's the president of Russia? Putin. I always get mixed up between Python and Putin.
Yes, Putin. He's still there.
It's very, as is Trump. Trump says, just elect me, and after 2 days I'll be.
We'll put an end to this. Yeah.
I want to ask you: do you believe, or are you in favor of pursuing this with Trump? Should he win, and it's possible that he could win the election.
43-43 in the latest New York Times poll. Wouldn't you think that a guy who's got 3 indictments, 4th one on the way for election interference and conspiring to turn the United States Constitution on its head, wouldn't you think that Biden should be ahead like 70-30 or 80-20s?
Right, yeah.
You would think so.
But I think the 43 is going to prove wrong, as it did last time. And really, it's a result of what the Republicans did to themselves. When the Supreme Court overturned
Roe v.
Wade, I said that, what do you call it, the Democrats are going to win big. And nobody believed that. Nobody gave that theory. And I said it's such an important issue for women, and women are half the population.
Right.
There's a lot of Christian women and pro-life. But that was such a big issue that I thought that swung it. And I think that's still prevalent.
I agree with you. And Trump has always had a problem, or his strongest part of his base is not women, and it's not the college-age kids, that this is an important issue to.
Right.
So I agree with you that this could be the weak point. But I'm still amazed. I'm amazed at 2 things. How come it never adds up to 100, 43-43, 86. Where's the other 14%? Where are they? But I'm amazed that even with
undecided.
Yeah, I know. I'm amazed that even with the indictments,
you're right,
and with the Roe v. Wade,
right,
that it's 43-43. Now, that either says something very bad about Joe Biden or extremely good about Donald Trump, and I guess it depends if you're a Democrat or Republican how you're going to answer that question.
No, a lot of traditional Republicans that what's his name, Trump would call rhinos.
Right. Republicans in name only.
Republicans in name only. A lot of the top leaders, including the guy who was head of the Republican Party, a black leader, Michael Steele.
Yeah, sure, I remember him.
And a lot of the what's the name, Conway, the lawyer, with a major firm in Manhattan. His wife was one
Kellyanne.
Kellyanne.
Yeah.
Very critical. They're part of a group called, what's the group called?
Lincoln Project.
The Lincoln Project.
Right. Now, I know that there's a statistic, Len just reminded us that 70% of the Republicans out there still think that the 2020 election was unfair.
Right.
And again, it almost doesn't matter because they're so stuck on that.
Yeah.
There could be no evidentiary proof to that. You know what they can't wrap their heads around? They can't wrap their heads around the fact that a guy campaigns in his basement and he wins. Or from his basement and he wins. They just can't wrap their heads around that.
That's a good point Trump makes. Trump says, I get thousands of people, they're standing in line.
Right.
And he's
in his basement.
He shows, even when he comes out of the basement, so he has a rally, 22 people show, I mean.
See, that's something else that you got to factor into this. Yes, I'm surprised that with the indictments and with Roe versus Wade, that Trump, it's still tied 43-43. But on the other hand, I'm thinking, at least in my opinion, or in the staunch Republican opinions, Biden's done nothing. And how is he getting 43%? So it really cuts both ways.
Because he's done a good job.
You might be right, but it almost doesn't matter because there's not to a Trump supporter nothing he can do.
Absolutely,
is bad enough.
absolutely.
And to Biden supporters, nothing he could do.
Look, the day
he could fall off a stage 12 times a day.
At the time,
he's the greatest thing since matzah.
At the time it came out that he did the radio show, where he said I could reach under a woman's dress.
Yeah.
And
I can do whatever I want, right?
Grab their vagina.
Yeah, quiet. We're on
and they like it, and they like it because it's me, and they like it. And then afterwards, he said, because a lot of those women came forth and complained, he said, "Do you believe that I would start up with those women?" That was 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
So they look like crap, but. I mean, they look good, but they don't look like the sex pots that the super. But you didn't let me ask you the final question.
Yes, sir.
The question was, if he wins, do you think he's ever going to give up the presidency, or he's going to become?
Well, by the Constitution, it's not just that you're entitled.
No, but
it's 2 terms, and they don't have to be consecutive. So he cannot run again.
I'm not talking about the law. I'm talking. This time he didn't follow the law either.
To be proven.
Would he turn it over to? I think he would. He's going to be president for life. It's the end of democracy. The end of democracy.
And I think these indictments are the end of democracy because you are criminalizing political speech.
He should be in jail for what he did. Anybody else would be in jail already.
And guess what? Anybody but Hunter Biden would be in jail now.
No,
the judge threw out the plea deal with Hunter Biden because you know what?
Because it wasn't prepared properly.
No.
Yes.
Because it protected.
He said go back and rework it. It's going to. Why?
Because it shielded him from any future prosecution. A plea deal is supposed to say, this is what you did, this is the punishment. It can't go into the future. And by the way, if we find out that you murdered 12 nuns, we're not going to prosecute for that either. And that's what it said. Well, you can't have a plea.
But so far,
anybody else.
There's overwhelming violations by Trump. He's the one that gets himself in trouble.
Oh, that I agree. He is his worst enemy.
And there's no such equal piles of incidents that so far the Justice Department has done. Now they say Biden's influencing the Justice Department. I don't believe that.
If I was Trump, if I was advising Trump back then, I would say, you know what? If you lost by 100,000, 200,000 votes, make a stink. If you lost by like 6 or 7 million votes, ride off into the sunset. You'll be a hero.
He said he won.
This is what I would have advised.
He said I got the most votes of anybody that ever lost.
That's pretty funny.
And then
run again in 4 years. I know. Run again in 4 years after Biden screws the country. But instead of taking advantage of the fact that, at least from a Republican point of view, Biden screwed democracy.
What worries me about re-electing Biden, I shared this view with you. if we re-elect Biden, and he's only 3 years older than Trump, and they're making such a big deal of his age. If Trump wins, he'd be the oldest president that was ever elected. So if he wins and he should die, Kamala Harris would be in line for the presidency.
That's a problem.
And I've seen nothing in the time that she's been serving that gives me any confidence. She's a nice lady. She doesn't say anything terrible, but she doesn't give me any confidence that she could ever run this country. Right. I know how she got started, and she got her launching because she was single and she had an affair with a top guy in San Francisco, the mayor of San Francisco. I forget his name.
Brown,
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Very well dressed. Very well dressed. She had an affair with him, and that's what launched her career. And the only other smart thing I ever saw her do is she married a nice Jewish husband.
Right. So here's the deal, and this, maybe we're getting off topic, but when you look at her resume, you really believe that Joe Biden or the Democrats really believe that this is the most qualified person out there to serve as vice president?
No, but he can't get rid of her.
No, not now.
No, because she's such a
albatross almost.
Such a
symbol
for the black community.
Yeah.
A black woman, a blackened woman, that they would go crazy. Even if he found, maybe if he put in, what's her name, Michelle Obama.
Right.
If he could
get her to be, she's more qualified.
She would win. She
right.
could run for president and win.
Yeah, but I think Kamala is just a disaster on many fronts. What is she? She's the most unpopular vice president since the polling of vice president.
To me, she's an embarrassment.
Right. And by the way, this touches on something that we've discussed many times, and that is when a person gets a position for any other reason other than the fact that they deserve it, you've compromised the position. Can you imagine if we would insist that 50% of the National Basketball Association players were white? There wouldn't be any reason to watch any games.
Right.
There wouldn't be.
Right.
So
meritocracy should count, and I agree with that.
Yeah. So when the perception is that Kamala Harris got the job originally because she's African American and because she's a woman, what you've basically done is you've dummied down the position. And you can't expect better. And this is why the Supreme Court just struck down affirmative action in college and post-college admissions. Because that you're not going to create a generation of qualified doctors and lawyers if you're accepting people that don't have the merit and that are there simply because of
I agree with that.
other...
I agree with that totally. And even Thomas, who I don't like at all, they just found out this week a wealthy friend of his bought him a camper.
Oh, yeah?
For $267,000. He didn't buy it for him. He lent him the $267,000.
Oh, okay.
But there's no evidence.
Every Supreme Court justice needs a camper.
No, there's no papers that show. So the guy who lent him the money said he satisfied the loan.
Debt, yeah.
So if he satisfied it,
Yeah.
but if he's satisfied, he has a big tax problem, because if you borrow something and you don't repay it, that's considered income to you.
If you borrow something...
If I borrow
right.
$100,000 from you,
oh, right,
and I default,
right, and you right. Then
I got $100,000,
right. So, is there any way in the world you vote for Donald Trump in the next election?
No way at all, because I think it's the end of democracy.
Is there any way in the world you don't vote for Joe Biden?
Is there any way in the world? Yeah, if he does something that I think would be hostile or
hostile to America, hostile to Israel.
Contrary to democracy, to the survival of democracy, then I wouldn't vote for him. But I don't know what we would do if I don't vote for either one of them.
Do you think an American Jew has the right or the obligation to factor into his decision of who he should vote for? Not limited to American interests, but that candidate's attitude towards Israel? Is that proper or improper? Would you not vote for a candidate because you think they're hostile to Israel?
Because I think...
Because you think they're hostile to
Yeah,
Israel?
I wouldn't vote for the congressman from Minnesota who's a Muslim.
Right.
She speaks well, she's attractive.
She's educated, no doubt.
But she's an enemy of Israel.
Right.
So I couldn't support her.
Right.
And not on any other basis that she's very pro-Palestinian. I can understand why she is, but I don't have to support her view based on what we talked about earlier.
Right.
You know, I'll tell you something interesting. When I worked in Staten Island years ago, door to door, so most of my customers, clients, if you will, customers, were overwhelmingly 95% Catholic, Polish, Italian, Irish, and they were very upfront with me. They said they hate Jews, they don't like Jews, they didn't say why, they just didn't. But one time a woman told me, you know, she can't stand Jews, but she'd like her daughter to marry a Jewish husband. So I said, I was so taken aback. I said, you always tell me how you hate Jews. You know, why would you want your daughter to marry a Jewish husband? She says, because the Jewish husbands bring home the money to the wives and don't beat them up. So they overwhelmingly, the wives used to meet them at Bethlehem shipyards where their wives worked, where the husbands worked, or some other big employer. Friday night, when they got their salary, said they shouldn't blow it at the bar or at gambling or what. So
see, I heard it a little bit differently. I heard about this guy, fellow walks into a bar, and this guy sits down next to him and says, "Why the long face, stranger?" He says, "Well, I just came from the doctor," and he says, "I have 6 months to live." So the fellow sitting next to him says, "Oh, that's terrible." So the first guy says, "Well, I only have 6 months to live. What do you think I should do?" He says, "Well, I think you should marry a Jewish woman." He says, "Really? Will that make me live longer?" He says, "No, but it'll be the longest 6 months of your life."
And you'll be happy to die.
God forbid.
No, but you know what also they told me, which was very strange. Overwhelmingly, they always told me, because they wanted to make me feel better, they said, but I would never use anybody but a Jewish lawyer or a Jewish doctor.
Right.
So they were smart enough to...
It's interesting. I mean, anti-Semitism itself is just such a strange, the origins of it and the way it manifests itself in the United States today. And it's all ignorance.
But
Anti-Semitism.
But look at Tucker. He's got a big audience now on
Tucker Carlson.
Twitter. Tucker Carlson. And he made this
Yeah.
terrible Jewish remark today.
Yeah.
Zelensky.
I didn't see it.
It'll be out. You'll
Yeah.
hear about it.
Well, it's an interesting... America's in for...
Do we have any time left? Because we could have a good argument yet if we have time.
What do you want to fight about?
We'll figure out something.
Okay, I figure out something.
The last question.
The last question: can somebody be president from jail? It is.
Yes.
It is. The answer is yes, because the Constitution is a broad document, and right. Let's back up a step. He can pardon himself, so he's never going to jail. It's a president can actually pardon himself. There's nothing in the Constitution that prohibits it.
But he could be held guilty and go to jail by the state.
So that's what I want to say. He can pardon himself on federal charges. He can't. It's not clear if he can pardon himself on state charges. He probably can't. He probably can't, which means the Georgia indictment is problematic.
What I tell Len is if he pardons himself. If he pardons himself, he won't worry about the states. He'll arrest the New York district attorney and whoever's bringing the charges. I'm telling you, it will be the end of democracy.
And I think these charges are maybe not the end of democracy, but are a chilling effect on democracy.
He already did. If he
did nothing.
No. I'm saying if he prevailed, and didn't turn over the election, the presidency to Biden, that would have been the end of democracy.
We mean who prevailed?
If
you prevailed in his challenge.
Well,
yes,
agreed.
agreed. If it's determined that...
No, if he did it. Not if it's determined.
Yeah, if he did it.
You know.
If he did it with the requisite criminal activity and the criminal intent,
Yeah,
that would have been...
My nurse says, if he felt he won, why didn't he stay in the White House?
Okay, so...
He could have done that.
Yeah, he couldn't have done that. Okay.
What do you mean? He could have. He could have called in the troops and said...
Okay, the question is...
when Nixon was, what do you call it, under that arrest?
Yeah.
People were worried that he would call in the troops.
Right.
The Supreme Court has 9 people. The Senate has, 540 together? Senate and a House.
535.
535?
Yeah.
He calls in his National Guard or his troops. What are they going to do?
Listen, the last question on the sheet was, can someone be president from jail? So the answer is that the first answer is, will it ever get that far if he can pardon himself? So
that's true.
So that's number one. But number two, let's say he was in jail and he ran for president from jail, and then he wins, but he's still in jail on the state charges where he can't pardon himself. So that's a tough question. How do you look at it? He can't be president because he's in jail and you can't perform he can't perform necessary activities of the president, or do you say, well, 1 second, he's already won, therefore
if he wins, he'll go to the White House. He has a right to trial.
Yeah.
Within the states, he still hasn't had the trial.
Yeah. Well,
and he would dismiss. He ain't going to take that crap from the little guys in
Georgia. It's an academic question, because even if he's found guilty before the next election, he will appeal, and he's not going to jail pending appeal because he's not a flight risk. So he will not sit in jail for a day, because if he wins the next election, he'll pardon himself.
That would be...
and it's uncharted territory. It's never happened before. The Constitution doesn't specifically prohibit it.
That would be a bad precedent, because then...
because then a guy can murder.
Then a president knows he could get away with anything.
Absolutely. Listen, the next... from now until the next election will be dominated by these indictments, because it's become the focal election issue. Can he effectively run for president when he's having 1, 2, 3, 4? Can he?
Let me say goodbye. We're finished.
Goodbye. Are we done?
I just want to thank my loyal listeners that join me every week for joining me today. I hope you had a chance to appreciate Dr. Rabbi Lawyer David Seidemann, and I want to thank you again. I love you all. Have a great week. I hope every day of your life is better than the day before. God bless you, and I'll see you next Wednesday.
And
Bye.
thank you again, Morty.